us again for our Growing in Grace podcast. I'm glad to have our special guest, Donna Green. And today we want to talk about life after Raymond. Miss Green, I would say Miss Green, but to me is Sister Green. We've known each other for quite some time.
Oh, yeah.
And you were young when your husband passed away.
I was 35.
35.
Yeah.
35. And so as we, tell us your story. Tell us your story about how your life began after Raymond. What was that like after losing your husband and then having to go forward with the children? How many children did y'all have?
We had 7 altogether. It was 5 still in the house when he went missing. When he passed.
Uh-huh.
It was 5 1-year-old twins, 2-year-old, 3-year-old, and I think Kristen was like 11, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, somewhere along there.
Yeah. Yeah. So what happened?
Well, Raymond. Well, me and Raymond, we've been together since I met him when I was 10. So we've been together. We got together when I was like 13. Got pregnant at 14.
Mm-hmm.
Had a baby at 15.
Mm-hmm.
Had another baby at 16.
Mm-hmm.
And then life kind of just took its turns. I got into church.
Mm-hmm.
And so at 30, when I turned 30, he joined the church.
Mm-hmm.
And then at 31, I had Kim. And then at 32, at 32, I had Kim. 33, I had Keegan. 34, I had the twins. And then 35, he passed. He had an aneurysm.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
I see. So that was all of a sudden.
Yes. It was all of a sudden. He had an aneurysm. And it kind of, because I was an at-home mom, I was working at first. And then after I had the twins, we decided that it would probably be better if I just stayed at home.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he passed, I had to go back to work. We had insurance, but we didn't have a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So after he passed, I had to go back to work. And then I'm raising all these children by myself, So it was very, very... It wasn't a difficult task. I think I would say it was an interesting task to raise them alone.
Mm-hmm.
Because when when Raymond died, I kind of went into some mental health stuff when he passed. So I had these kids, and then my mental, it wasn't right. So I was trying to take care of some children, and at the same time, trying to let everybody see that I was normal, and I really wasn't normal,
So you had this mask on.
Oh man, yeah. I would come to church smiling and everything, but I was very, very, mentally, I was totally unstable. And I had to fix it where could nobody see my mental. Because I remember one night at church, Elder Bryant was teaching, and he kind of looked at me and he was like, "Are you all right?" I was just really going through some stuff at that time, But then I think sometimes when you go through emotional stuff, a whole lot of other stuff come up, So with him passing, everything kind of came to surface. My son is missing, my molestation, everything that I didn't deal with. The rape, the molestation, the missing. So all of those things
kind of piled on.
Because when you're young and you go through stuff, you don't really handle it. You kind of, because you don't know what it, a lot of times when you don't have that person to go to, you find a place to put that pain and that, So when Raymond died, everything just surfaced. It's like the molestation came. So I was having the vivid dreams and all this other stuff that was going on because I really wasn't whole when I got married. I had stuff going on anyway, and so did he. So after he passed, everything just kind of... So I got these kids, and then I'm dealing with my mental, and then I'm dealing with having to come around everybody and be whole and be normal. And I think that was the hardest part of raising the children because I never dealt with my mental. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the hardest part of raising them, just having to deal with these little children talking about where their dad was and all this. And then I'm stuck with being an at-home mom. Now I got to go out and go to work. So, but God blessed in that because by me having to work, it really changed the dynamics of my thinking because at first I was thinking suicide. Thank God it wasn't homicide. I have thought that, but that was in the past, you know.
Yes,
So
yeah.
I was thinking suicidal thoughts and stuff like that, and I still couldn't tell nobody how messed up I was in my mind, you know. But I had to go back to work. And so with having to all of a sudden go across town to take 2 children here, drop these 2 off, then drop that one off, then come back across town and drop this one off, and then get to work on and you know, doing the same cycles, picking everybody up and doing all that. It's like God just gave me enough to do to keep me occupied so I wouldn't get in that dark place. Because when I went to moving, I didn't stop.
Yeah. So it's kind of like you got this routine going, and it gave you the right amount of maybe what you might say positive stress.
Right.
Positive stress.
Right.
What you call eustress.
Yeah.
Where you were motivated to fulfill these tasks and these purposes that was outside of the home.
Exactly. Because I remember going to my house one night and I was just in that place, in a dark place. And I felt like I was going to die that night. I just knew I was finna die. So I went in each room and kissed each child, and then I laid down and I knew that was it. Well, when I woke up the next morning and I'm thinking, okay, either you're going to do something about your mental or these kids going to be without a mom, you know. So, and I just wasn't willing to do that. So all of a sudden I got a job. Then I had Keegan and the twins in one daycare. I had Keegan in a whole nother daycare. Kristen came, I was staying over on Cleveland. Kristen had to go to school over here. And then I went back to work. So I was dropping everybody off every morning, still trying to be at work at 8 o'clock. So what God did for me is he gave me enough to do that I couldn't focus on the mental part of what was going on. You see what I'm saying? Because I used to be so tired that when I would get on my knees at night, I would wake up wondering, did I pray? Just that tired. And time just kept going. Just kept going in that busyness. It just kept going. So I didn't allow, by the grace of God, myself. And then the kids got bigger, and as they got bigger, you know, they came with their own challenges, you know, of raising them. But we went through a lot. We went without lights. We went without gas. We went without water. We stayed in the hotel. You know, we had to go through so much that just trying to raise them. Because when Raymond died, before I put him in the ground, I had told God, I said, I went outside the night we were having his wake. I didn't go. And I just looked up at the sky and I told God, I said, I'm not going to be married. Me and you, we're going to raise these kids. I'm their mama, you their father. And by your grace, we're going to raise these kids. And I meant that. I meant that. So with that, I just made up my mind. So it just, you know, the Lord just blessed for me to be able to get through some of the stuff. And within all of that, it helped my mental, you know, because mental health is a serious issue. And I didn't know that until Raymond died. And then all of those things just came full circle. You know, yeah.
So you didn't know where your mental health was until he passed away?
I didn't know that those things, that being molested at 6, being molested at 7, being raped, I didn't know all of those things, you know, having a dad that wasn't there, a mama that was emotionally disconnected. So when I was young, most of the time I would sit with my back to the wall because I knew if the wall had my back, I could watch my front, you know. So all those things But when Raymond died, all of a sudden now you got to deal with these things that you didn't deal with, but you don't know how to deal with it at the young age, now you got to deal with it because I didn't tell nobody, because me and my mom, we had issues, real bad issues, so I didn't tell nobody. So after he died, it's like all of a sudden everything, came full circle, and I'm fighting that. I'm dealing with the grief, and I'm dealing with the kids not understanding that their dad not coming back again. So I'm dealing with all that. I'm at the hospital at 3 o'clock in the morning because I'm thinking I'm having a heart attack when I'm having anxiety. And then I'm back. I'm getting home at 6, grabbing the kids, getting them ready for they do that route. Take them here, take this one here, take this one here, hit that and go back to work. And so, I'm constantly going and just hoping. So I was in a real dark place. But God, I remember I was sitting and I don't know what I was dreaming. It was a vision. But it was like I was going up these steps. It was so dark. I never seen darkness so dark before. And I couldn't look back because it was too scary to look back. And when I looked ahead, I didn't see anything. And it was just the only light was the step I was on. And I didn't know whether to go up the other step. And I was so scared. And I remember asking God, was I going to be all right? And he said to me in a spirit, do you trust me? You got to go through this. I'm not going to take it away from you, but do you trust me? Well, see, that was foreign to me because I went to church, but I didn't trust God. I just went to church and did what everybody else did. I watched everybody because I didn't grow up in church, didn't talk about church in my house, didn't talk about praying, never prayed with my family, anything like that. So trusting God was foreign to me.
Trusting anybody sounds like
right.
foreign to you.
Right.
Because you believed in keeping your back up against the wall
I
so
had
you can
to.
watch your front.
And you better believe it.
So you had some trust issues.
I had some major trust
and so
issues.
God began to work on your trust issues with himself.
He did.
So you had to begin to trust God.
So it was like, no, the hospital couldn't help me and nobody else would help me. And I would ask people all the time, would they just come and spend the night in the house with me? Nobody would. It was like I was pushed in there and shut the door and said, deal with it, So after a while, I realized I don't have nobody else. I gotta trust you, But in that, my walk became different because I knew it was a power greater than me. See, I thought I had to keep my own self by my own power. That's why anybody that came around me, the energy that you gave me was the energy that you got because I know how to keep you off me. You know what I'm saying? So, but then I started dealing with stuff and then I started having these real bad anxiety attacks, So with that, God just showed me how to handle them. I would go to work and then I would have a bad anxiety attack. And I would just pull over and I would ask myself why you had that attack. Then I remember, okay, well, Raymond is buried right down the street. Or you and Raymond. So God just started dealing with me. So it was just always me and him to help me work through that mental stuff that I had, So that's how I got to the point where I could do what I could do and didn't have to play or pretend like I was okay. I just realized that if God gonna take me today, he gonna take me, it don't matter what I do. And if I'm gonna be here no matter what. So let me live my life and take care of my kids and trust him to see me through these times. And then I start sleeping better, and I start dealing with life on lifetime.
So you learned that the worry isn't going to help you. In fact, the main direction that worry is going to take you is the negative direction.
Yes. But then, when you're dealing with mental health and you got so much compiling on you, your thought process is off.
Right.
It's off. And you just in that dark place. And if you don't have the strength to be able, and I think that comes by the grace of God, if you don't have the strength to be able to hold yourself or to be able to get past that, it can keep you down there. My whole thing was God knew it couldn't have been just, because Mom was already grown. It couldn't have been just Kristen that was going to hold me. You know, it couldn't have been just Kim and Kristen. It was still not enough. Then it couldn't have been just Keegan, but see, when them twins came, now I got 3 kids at home in diapers and a husband that just passed. You know what I'm saying? I got the 1-year-old twins, the pull-ups. All 3 of them was in pull-ups. And then, you know, so I had so many different dynamics that God knew that she got to have all this in order to, because them kids got me up in the morning. They made me move when I didn't want to. You know, I wanted to sit and grieve and be in my darkness because it was easy for me to do that. Life wasn't fair to me. You know what I'm saying? Why was I molested at 6? Why was I molested at 7? So life wasn't fair to me. So I wanted to be in my darkness because I never had that opportunity to just be in that darkness. But those kids, I had to get up and move. I had to get up and do. I had to take care of them because now it was just me and them against the world. You know, it wasn't anybody else. And then God told me to trust him, and I gave that to him. So now I had somebody that, even though it looked like it wasn't nobody there, I knew I always walked. So what it was is I realized whose I was and to whom I belonged. That made me be able to move.
So you feel like you're whole today?
Definitely.
All right. And so what you believe that component of trusting God is the thing that began to put you in that direction of being made whole?
Yeah, because I didn't have anything else. I didn't have any. I didn't have a dad that you could call. I didn't have a hug. I didn't have somebody that would hold my hand. Even when Raymond died, I asked somebody, "Would you just hold my hand?" And they wouldn't even do that. So I never had that shoulder that I can lean on up until this day. You know, so my whole life, past Raymond, it's just been God. You know, I deal with my deaths. Everything that I had to deal with is just me and God. Sometimes I wish I had somebody there that would hold my hand and say it's gonna be okay. But I still know I got God, and that's enough, if nothing else, because I feel like that with God, he's gonna give you what you need. I feel like I need people around me. I want that. I don't have that. So then it must be a strong want, because if it was a real need, I feel like he would meet it. You see what I'm saying? So for me, when it comes to the things that I feel like I need, I always tell myself, okay, but God said he'll supply your needs, Donna. So if he's not supplying that need, it must be a strong want, because I know he's going to supply my needs. So I totally trust him.
Well, that's different from where you started, isn't
it? I come from humble beginnings.
So you've grown.
Definitely.
And I know one scripture said, trust in the Lord
Amen.
with all thine heart.
Yeah.
Lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge.
And he'll direct your path. And sometimes I still ask myself, how do you do that? What does that look like? You know, even though I trust him, I don't know whether I trust him with my whole heart. You know, and I ask myself sometimes, okay, Lord, what does that look like? Because I want to get to that point where I don't want to trust you when I've tried everything else and it failed. Now this is where I want to go there first. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you don't want him to be the last
stress.
Then he's rescuing you from yourself, from all your bad decisions, by not allowing him to direct your path in the first place.
Exactly. But then a lot of times, I don't. I trust him. I say I trust him because that's what I say. But then when I go through things, I pick up the phone and start calling everybody else first. And then when they can't rescue me from that situation, whatever it is, then I trust God. And he comes through. I could have did that from the get. So I have to work on that, because I'm like, Lord, trusting you with my whole heart. Yeah. What does that look like? How does that feel? How do I do that?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And that's where, everybody could probably begin to reorganize how they do in trusting God. And what I mean by that is a lot of people do the same thing. They'll call a buddy, they'll call a pal, they'll call a friend, they'll call this one and that one. And really, the Lord is the one with the answer.
With the answer.
Now, I will say this, though. Sometimes God does have somebody here with the answer.
I totally believe that. And that I realized raising these children.
Yes.
Because when it came to raising them, if it wasn't for the true Church of God in Christ, I tell people, the ones that I raised past Raymond, after Raymond passed, it was just the true Church of God in Christ to help me raise these kids and do, because it's no way I could have done as good a job as I've done with them if it wasn't for the community of the church. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Because when they needed clothes, they provide. When they needed shoes, they provided. When we needed food, they provided. When I just needed the place, they got the kid. You know what I'm saying? It was always, and due to the fact that none of my family went to church, my mom, I think I only sat in church with her one time, and that was at a funeral. So God wasn't talked about in our house. The only time God was talked about is when it was thundering. You cut everybody thing off and be quiet because God is talking. Okay. So that was the only thing. So none of my brothers and sisters went to church or family, aunts, uncles, whatever like that. So I feel like God chose me. And for him to put me here, he knew what I was going to need to get through this life. You know what I'm saying? So when I came to the temple, my life became much easier. In a aspect that I had a path. And then when I didn't know what to do, I could watch. Because being a mom, and my children were very challenging.
Yeah.
They were very challenging children, So there were times when I felt like, these kids are crazy. You know what I'm saying? And then there were times but the thing about it is, they saw me in the church, and they knew who I was in the church, and they honored that. And so all of my decisions, they automatically knew that it come from a biblical. And even though we had to go against it a lot, because Keegan wanted to be Keegan and Kim wanted to do it, it was still I had a foundation that I could hold on to, opposed to me I can't even imagine my life without
some type of boundary, some type of form or a fashion of living.
Exactly, because I didn't know. I watched the sisters here. That's how I learned how to be a sister, because I didn't come from all that. You understand? I came from the street where my life was totally different. I could get you. You know what I'm saying? It's so much I did out there. I remember coming to church high. I would come to church sometime high. I came, but I didn't stop coming.
I didn't know you back then.
I didn't know me either back then. But I didn't stop coming. And I remember one time I came to church, I was so high. My stomach hurted so bad, I thought I was going to die. And I remember going in the back of the church, and I said, Lord, if you just help me through this, I will not do that no more. I had to hold on to the wall, and I wasn't in pain before I got to church, but it was like God saying, "You gonna come up in my house?
Come in my house. I got something for you. I'm gonna make you feel real uncomfortable."
I was in so much pain, I didn't know what to do, and I got up and I went to the back, and I almost had to hold on to the wall, and I said, "Lord, if you just help me with this pain, I will not come back to church high." Now I didn't say I wasn't gonna get high. Let's be clear.
Okay.
I said I wasn't gonna come back to church high.
Okay. All right.
And I didn't, But then all of a sudden, that life just left me. I didn't want that life no more. I just decided one day I was gonna stop smoking cigarettes. I was gonna stop drinking beer. I was gonna stop getting high, and I did that. But I kept coming to church. I don't know why I kept coming. I had no reason to keep coming.
Because the message that the church was putting out was against the life you was living.
Right. It was against the life I was living, and I wasn't really looking at nobody who wanted to pattern myself. What it was is I just needed a hiding place from out there. So I felt like, okay, if you go to church one day a week, at least you did something right. At least you did something right. So I kept coming, and all of a sudden things just started dropping off me.
Do you believe that the word that you was hearing by being here, or by being in the church, was actually having an impact on you subconsciously?
It had to be subconscious, because I wasn't really listening.
What I'm saying, because you weren't intentional.
I wasn't intentional, but I was watching the sisters.
I see.
And I wanted to be like them, because they look clean, and they look they looked like they had a life and they looked happy. And I was watching them, the way they dressed, the way they carried themselves and all that stuff there. And I felt like I just wasn't worthy. And I knew in my head, I could never be like that. I could never be like them, you know. And then all of a sudden I started dressing different. And I started thinking different. And then I felt like I could engage in conversations with them now. And I felt like, but they taught me how to be a sister. They taught me how to be a woman. They taught me how, just watching them. You know what I'm saying? I came from the street.
It wasn't everything they said. It was a lot of what they did.
It was what they did. It wasn't what they said because I wasn't engaging a lot back then. Because in my head, I felt like everybody thought they was better than me. But see, that was my thinking because I didn't feel like I could be like them. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. It really wasn't what they thought. It was what you was putting on.
It was what I was putting. It was what I was telling myself. So I wasn't doing a lot of engaging with them. But I was watching them, and I desired that, that clean life. That's what I saw. I saw cleanness. I desired that clean life that they lived. They seemed happy, and they didn't wear makeup, and they didn't wear earrings, and they didn't wear pants, and they talk wasn't cussing, and all that. And then I had to begin to watch what I around it. You know, at first I didn't care. Then I started caring about what they thought about what I said, you know, and stuff. So it really, just watching the sisters, that was my life. And then when I started having children, when I got married, then I watched them as to how to be a wife, you know, because me and Raymond came from the streets. So it wasn't no, yes, honey, if you want that. It was, boy, you got to be crazy. You know what I'm saying? I ain't doing that. You know, but I learned, you know, that because see, when we got married, it was hard trying to humble down, trying to do what I saw the sisters do. They made it look easy. That submissive
position or role of a wife.
They made it look easy, you know. And then Raymond would tell me, well, you know, according to the word, you supposed to do this, and I'd be like, don't come get in there. Now we grew up together. Don't start that in here, you know, all that stuff there. But then I started wanting to be submissive, and I started being submissive. But it wasn't as easy as these sisters made it look. But I started being submissive. And then when I had children, I was raised in a house where it was a lot of drinking, you know, a lot of music playing a lot. That's how I was raised, you know. So
that good gospel music?
No, we ain't playing no gospel.
Okay.
We ain't playing no gospel. So, and then you had music. Going to bed at night, we listened to music. Waking up in the morning, if we was mad, that's how Mama was just a music person, so everything was music. So listen to the gospel music and everything, and then I'm raising these children. And I'm trying to get out of my zone and keep the gospel music on. But then I started watching the sisters how they would take care of their children and how they would do this with their children and stuff, and I desired that, you know, cook for their children and do all these things for their children and husband. And then I started patterning myself. So a lot of who I am today, honestly, is because of I watch my sisters and I listen to my sisters. And sometimes when they would say, their husband would say things to them to the left and they would come back. So I used to be like, man, I would have checked him at the door. You know what I'm saying? But they be like, no, you don't do it like that. That's not, you know. And I'm like, okay, well. And then when Raymond started, he started humbling down more.
When you changed to your submissive position?
When I changed. And see, when I would go to Mother Dudley and I would tell Mother Dudley.
I was going to ask you about Mother Dudley and some of the conversations you had with Mother Dudley.
Mother Dudley, I would go to Mother Dudley and I'd be like, Mother, he didn't come home. And then he said this and that. And Mother would just sit there. She would just sit there, just rocking. And then I said, you know, I'm upset. And she'd be like, is the house clean? Is the dinner ready? You know, is the kids' hair combed? And I would always leave her saying, one of these days, all that's going to be done. Because it was never done.
And she had a point in all of that, didn't she?
But I wasn't getting it. I wasn't getting it. You know, I would leave back home. One of these days, you know, I'd be thinking, I'm going to go up there. My house going to be clean. My kids' hair going to be combed. My dinner going to be cooked. Because I was always lacking something when she would say that, you know. And so one day she said, went up there and I told her everything that Raymond had said to me. And she was like, what did you say? And I was like, Mother, I told him so and so and so and so and so. You know, I told everything I told him. And she said, why don't you try putting water in your mouth the next time you want to say something? And I sat there for a minute and I thought about it and I was like, hey, Mother, I won't be able to say nothing if I put water in my mouth. And she just sat there quietly, didn't say nothing else. And I was like, oh, she want me to be quiet. And I said, but, so he get to say whatever he want to say and I don't get to say nothing? She didn't say nothing else. So I went home and I tried the water thing and I thought about when I got ready to open my mouth, the water came out and I caught the water and I was like, okay, she said be quiet. So when Raymond would say things, I would be quiet. I just wouldn't say, and it helped me because the day he left, the day he died, that could have been a bad scene for us. Mm-hmm. And then that would have been something else.
That would have worked with your mental.
That would have worked with my mental.
Yeah.
But
because of things that you would have said.
Right.
That you would have liked to have taken back.
But didn't have the opportunity to do it.
Yes.
So I learned how to be quiet and just how to be submissive. But then I also realized that even if I didn't say anything, I still was out of pocket in a lot because I didn't appreciate it. And I let him know. He would say, well, I want you to cook this and that and the other. I'm going to cook it, but don't you say nothing to me, all this other stuff, because I didn't want to cook it, So then I had to learn how to do things in love. Because he would come home and he would be like, you cooked this spaghetti, but you didn't cook it with love. I could tell that. I said, but I cooked it, and if you want something different, you better do it yourself. But he was right. I cooked it because I'm getting to the point where I'm cooking dinner for my husband. Mm-hmm. You gonna come home talking stuff, cook it yourself. I ain't doing that now. Mm-hmm. But then
he felt all that.
I think he used to he tried to aggravate me because he knew it was gonna get me started. I ain't cooking nothing that But then I started humbling from that, and I started cooking his meals like he liked it. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So right before he died, it was like that little paradise we had, and I realized, what Claude said when Claude said you can have a little heaven right here on earth in your home. Well, I would begin to experience that because we begin to know one another in a spiritual way and not just we grew up in the hood and this is how we go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I had to come down for him to come down. Mm-hmm. So right when they got what we wanted, he was gone. Mm-hmm. So now here come the demons and the battles that I had to face. But I learned a lot, and I tell everybody, man, I learned a lot just being here. Just being here because y'all could take it for granted when you grew up here. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You saw in the church and you saw how your mama and all them there treated each other. So you knew that I didn't grow up in the church. I didn't grow up with the Lord. I didn't grow up with all that stuff there. So for me, it came different. Mm-hmm. So you may look at me and say, not you, but I'm saying that I feel like for myself, I'm so much better than I could have ever did had I not came this way. And I feel like the true Church of God in Christ, when we talk about love, I felt that. I know what that feel like. I know it gave me a place to belong. Mm-hmm. When I come here, I know I belong. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I know I can come here when I can't go anywhere else. And coming from the street and not having that, didn't even feel like I belonged at home. It was just a whole different thing when I came here. So it made me deal with this life and then that life, this life, then that life, until it just merged and it became one life.
Right. Wonderful. That's wonderful. So you feel like you're like a new person now?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, because I dealt with a lot of that. My therapist, I see a therapist. My therapist called me. He was like, I ain't seen you in a while. I said, now, when you start calling me, what's wrong? Because you calling me, you don't never supposed to call me. You supposed to let me call you. Did you see something that I need to know about? Mm-hmm. He was like, no, I just wanted to see you. But he told me, he says, like you're a kid all over again because you didn't experience that. Mm-hmm. Now my children are grown. They're doing good. I'm so proud of them. God has blessed me with some amazing children. And I started having babies. I was pregnant at 14, so I didn't have that life.
So you didn't have the childhood.
I didn't have that childhood life. I had, and then when Lamar got missing, it really took me to a whole nother world. Mm-hmm. Now I'm dealing with the mental of being molested by my mama boyfriends that keep coming over, Mm-hmm. And then now pregnant at 14, that's a mill. 15 had a baby, 16 had another baby, and that baby got taken. So I'm just in a whole whirlwind of stuff, you know. So dealing with all that mental stuff and trusting God in the process and raising these children who also helped me because they kept me praying, but they taught me a lot about being a mother. And they taught me, because in the church when we raise our children, I want my children to look a certain way because that's where the church children are supposed to look. And I want my children to act a certain way because the church children act like that. So a lot of times I wasn't really trying to find out about my children. I just wanted them to act like everybody else act, which, you know what I'm saying? So I really wasn't trying to find out about when Kim ran away that day. Remember when you had to go get Kim and bring her home that night when Kim ran away?
It was in Tennessee.
It was in Tennessee. But Kim had some stuff going on. I wasn't really listening to her. You just act like you're supposed to act, because if you act like these is how church children act, and I didn't want her acting any different. Well, what I did with them is I caused them to act out because I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
You know, we as parents, we have to listen to our children because some things that they got going on is real valid and it's real to them. You can't just put on them, this is how you're supposed to act because I want the church to see my child acting normal. You know what I'm saying? When they got stuff going on that you're not listening to, you know.
Right. And sometimes the listening has to come from what you see. And what I mean by that is you see them behaving a certain way, and then with that behavior means that you need to have a conversation with them. What I'm saying is sometimes they're not talking to you.
Right.
But you see a certain behavior in them that says we need to talk.
And exactly. And that's the thing. And then when they tell you, because sometimes they'll tell you some things you just don't want to hear. But you got to realize that that's what's real for them right now. And that's how, so you got to address that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that is what, so I caused a lot of time when the kids was acting out, I know they was coming from a place. I know they was coming home every day and it's no lights. And we got to live like this for a while. Coming home every day and the water's off. And we got to live like this for a while.
Yeah.
You know, coming home every day and it's cold and there's no gas. And I'm working 16 hours a day. I'm working 16 hours a day. So they're not seeing a lot of me. You know what I'm saying? They're not seeing a lot of me. Then they got to go home and deal with this. So they was having some real issues going on. And I had my issues just trying to take care of them. So it was just, you know, sometimes we would sit down and talk, though, they would tell me things. Kayla told me the other day, she said, you know, Mama, you say we had a normal childhood, but now being without lights like that just wasn't normal.
That ain't normal. That ain't normal.
I said, and she was like, but I know you was doing the best you could, you know. And but see, they never showed that it was really affecting them like it was, you know. And true story, it was Christmas time. I brought the kids down here to Atlanta and I went back to Chattanooga. We had moved down there. We didn't have no furniture. All our furniture was up there in Tennessee, up in Huntington, Tennessee, but it had a flood up there and all our stuff got messed up in the storage. So when we came down, we just had all our stuff in the truck. We just had our clothes. When I got here, the guy that Chattanooga.
Okay.
When I got to Chattanooga, the guy that I was getting the place from, he jetted and he didn't show up. So that's how we ended up in a hotel.
I see.
So when we finally got a place, we didn't have nothing but clothes. We got our place. We took all our clothes and spread them on the floor, and that's how all of us slept, on the clothes, and we put clothes on top of us. And one day, and lady next door was my landlord, and because I was a duplex, and I knocked on her door, and I said, can I just have this chair? Because we didn't have a chair to sit in. So we got that chair, and the chair leaned to the side. And so I would sit in that chair, and I remember this Christmas, and then I would take the pad off the chair to lay on the floor. And I would, you know, so I remember this Christmas, the lady, somebody named Miss Fox called me. She had came to my house before, an older Caucasian lady. She had came to my house before, and we talked and everything. Somebody gave her my name. So for Christmas, the kids was all down here in Atlanta, and I had to go back home to get something. She called and said, Donna, you there? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, you going to be there for a minute? I said, yes, ma'am. She said, okay, I'm going to send somebody over there. Well, it was like dust dawn, very cold, like the 23rd of December, I think it was. I went to the mailbox, and I got the mail out, and I went in, I hadn't even paid my rent. And I opened it was a card. And I tell you who the card was from, Nancy Hutchinson. And it was like, things are going to be better. You just watch. And I hadn't even talked to Nancy, but I needed that card at that time. And I'm sitting there with this little radio that can't hardly staticky. And I'm just sitting there up against the wall, and I'm just sitting there like this. Because I couldn't go back. It had kind of got ice on the ground. So the lady knocked on my door, a Caucasian lady knocked on my door. And she said, you done? I said, yeah. I was like, come on in. Didn't have nowhere for her to sit. She came in, and she was telling the truck to babe, come on back, babe. So the truck came in, and she said, can I see your rooms? And I was like, yeah, but I'm still not knowing what's going on. So she came in. They came in.
Miss Kim Fox?
No, not. I don't know her. Don't remember her. Carol Fox. Carol Fox. Yeah.
Okay.
So the truck came in. So she went back in the room, and next thing I know, they bringing beds back there in the room. Bringing beds. So I'm back there in the room, and she was like, now I'm embarrassed. I'm kind of embarrassed, ashamed of why I don't know these people. So then while they back there in the room, it's Christmas Eve. I got my little radio playing, my little Christmas music. And so while I'm back there in the back, she said, oh, we're going to put the beds together and make them up and everything. And I was like, no, you don't have to do that. Well, they doing all that. I'm back there with them, mine going. I come up in the living room, a whole living room suit in there. Whole living room suit in there. So, and then they put things on the bed, and I said, hey, wait a minute, why? Who? I don't even know y'all.
So what's
why?
Going on?
Right. And she said, somebody gave you my name. Somebody gave me your name, and your name was chosen. I was like, okay, cool. A few days later, the landlord's daughter came over to the house, and she just looked around, and she was like, oh, you got your furniture and everything. And I was like, yeah, but I said, that still blows my mind. Like, I don't know. That's what I'm telling her. I just don't know. And she started crying. And I said, what's wrong? She said, you moved over here, and your kids are outside playing all the time, and they running, and they playing, and they laughing, and they help my mom when she get out and everything. She said, you wouldn't have never known, but you called me to come and fix your commode, and when I came in, and you had nothing. But your kids, you never saw that because they was always running and playing and laughing. They didn't show because I'm a firm believer in you as strong as your head. So they never saw me break. They never saw me break. They didn't see me cry. When we didn't have lights, we would just laugh and play and play all kind of games and listen to the radio. Right. We had a candle, and we would listen to and we don't. So I remember when I finally got the lights on, I think this was the last time our lights was out. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to say that. Sound good. So so I remember when I finally got them lights on, we had been without lights for about 3 weeks. I got the lights on, and kids came home from school, just come in the house talking. I'm off work that day, and I'm just happy, and I'm waiting on them to get. I'm just gonna surprise them. The lights on or whatever. They came in talking, laughing, talking about one another, and just laughing. So nobody said nothing about the lights on. I had the TV on and everything, and they went on to their room laughing, talking, just talking about each other, So I said, hey, ain't nobody said nothing about the lights being on. I'm proud of myself. And one of them hollered out, you should have left them off. It would have been a bill you didn't have to pay, And I'm like, so they learn how to adjust to what we had going on because they know I was doing the best I could, working all these hours. And then, but like I said, now they had their stuff, and they would sometimes lash out, lash out. And so God had to give me wisdom as to how to deal with them with that. Because I remember coming home one night, I dealt with children all day. I worked in the drug center dealing with children from 13 to 18 coming off the drugs. So I was always, F you, Miss Donna, just disrespected there. And I would have to handle that. Well, when I come home, and I told Kayla one day, I came home and I was like, why the dishes ain't washed? I'm not washing them dishes. I was like, oh, okay. And then I went in there and I said something to Kendall, and he was like, Mama, you just got home and you already finna get started. Oh, okay. So I sat there for a minute, and I went back. Kayla, I opened the door. I said, get my dishes washed now. And I shut the door back. And then I told Kendall, because I asked him to do something, and he wasn't going to do it. So I just went in the room, and I just got his duffel bag, and I throwed it to him, and I started getting his clothes. And he was like, what you doing? I said, see, people in my house, they do what I say. You don't want to be in my house. You don't want to do what I say, then you can't be in my house. Get your clothes and go. You know, Mama, I was going to do it. You in your feelings. You know what I'm saying? But I learned how to deal with them. And see, with Keegan, you know, Keegan wash the dishes. I wash my dish. I was like, hey, man, where you do that? Where they do that at? What you talking about? Where they just wash your dish at? Like, you not going to wash no more dish? I'm going to wash my dish. I said, well, I tell you what, I want you to get your stuff and go where they wash your dishes at. Well, you can just wash that one dish. Because in here, you can't do that. I learned how not to go in on them with their stuff, but let them know, hey, I'm not doing that. Till it got to the point where God calmed me so far down that sometimes when I would hear they did things, I'd be like, you did what? You know, how's that working for you? Mm-hmm. You know, because I know they had to fight. They had to fight their own battles and some things. I could not keep running out there, going up against that brick wall, mm-hmm. so they can cushion the blow. Mm-hmm. So a lot of things that they did, I let them feel the pain from doing those things. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? But it had to be the Lord showing me, because I wanted them to be a certain way, and that's it. Mm-hmm. My kids wasn't that way. You know what I'm saying? And they fought me tooth and nail to show me that this is not where I am, Mama. You trying to make me do this. You, like Kim said, you want me to wear them long dresses, look like you every day. I'm not finna look like you. I was like, okay, you know. But I had to understand that that wasn't what I wanted, but that's what she saw. Uh-huh. So now I got into that, what I said is not what you heard. What did you hear? So let's talk about what you heard. You know, opposed to, that's not what I said. You heard what I said, blah, blah, blah. I wasn't that hard with them anymore. What did you hear? You know, when they tell me that's not what I meant, I apologize. And that was a big thing for me. Mm-hmm. I apologize for that. I didn't mean that way. You know, mm-hmm. And then some things I had to learn how to just, okay, they just going through their growing pains. Let me, you know, but I learned a lot of stuff. And then too, I still had my stuff too. And I didn't want to pile all my stuff on them. So we kind of grew together, yeah. Honestly. Uh-huh. We grew together a lot because they kind of start respecting me more, seeing why, because I would explain to them, man, Mama tired, y'all, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Y'all doing all this up at the schools and y'all cutting up at the schools. And I remember when Kim graduated, because when I went up to the school, one of the teachers was like, when Kayla went up to the high school, the teacher was like, that's your daughter too? And I was like, yes, ma'am. I knew that attitude. I knew it was something, because they had a, you know. Mm-hmm. But I remember when the last two graduated, because I had Kim graduate, then next year Keegan graduated, then next year the twins graduated. And the guy was like, Miss Green, did you have any more children coming through him? You know? And I was like, no. He was like, we finally got the Greens out of school, you know. Uh-huh. But I learned a lot from my kids. They taught me a lot. I paid attention to a lot of things, and they taught me a lot. So we learned because I was 14 when I first started having children. I was 52 when my last ones graduated. Mm-hmm. All those years was children in school. Yeah. You know, so they taught me a lot, but it was by the grace of God that I had to pay attention to some things, and I realized that some of their stuff, it was because of me. I was putting my mental on them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah. And so you've learned a lot, and then there are some things that kind of like Mother Dudley was able to share some things with you. You may have some things you might could share with a younger woman now. Because of your season of life, and you've experienced a lot with having lost your husband, and there's a whole part of life that comes when, you know, with widowhood. Right. And then with raising kids alone and single parenting.
Single parent is hard. My hat goes out to mothers that single parents is really out there trying to. I understand that. That's a hard thing, and you got to be in the right frame of mind to halfway do it right. Yeah. Especially when you're raising young men.
Right, right. In fact, that's something that we probably need to talk more about. Definitely. Single parenting. Yeah. Because a lot of times we talk about the nuclear family, and that's really what God designed, is a man and a wife, and they're coming together, having children, raising children. But there are things that happen along the way sometimes where it doesn't continue to be the husband and the wife raising the children. Sometimes there's a single mother, sometimes there's a single father, and that's a whole different dynamic of life. And children need certain things in those situations.
They do. And when you got a mother that don't have a church family, they don't have a family that she can lean on that's a hard life, trying to, and when you just got a mother that don't have, like my boys, they didn't really have that male that they could just really, so Keegan was Kendall's mentor. Keegan was Kendall. That's who Kendall looked at. He looked to Keegan, where Keegan kind of just, so when you're a single parent like that, and you're right, it's a lot of things that, and I talked to one young lady, and she went and talked to a pastor about helping her with her son because her son was giving her so much trouble, and she just wanted help anywhere. She didn't do the work, but the pastor kidnapped her son. He took her son, kept him for a while, I think a year, till they found her son. But I say that, and the reason why I said that is to say, I don't know if there's a single mother that's out there that's listening now. But if she is, and I understand the dynamics, because I asked a whole lot of men about my children and what they helped me with my children, and God just really blessed, because I went to one man that I thought was a good man. And I asked him about helping me with my son, and he was like, "Yeah, I would be definitely glad to help you with your son." But further on, look, Lord didn't see that to happen. But further on down the road, I realized he was a pedophile. Well, I'm glad that I didn't put my sons in that position.
Right.
So, but I'm saying that to the single mothers out there, and I know you need help, and I know that you want somebody, especially when you're dealing with our young men, because I feel like sometimes we're not equipped to give them what they need. If we don't hear everything they saying, well, you could pick it up immediately. This is what's going on. We're not equipped with that. But take your time out and try to find somebody and go to somebody, really do the work to put them in a position if you want a mentor for them. Don't just the first person that look like
they interested.
May be, they may be a good person, because everybody that look like a good person, then definitely not a good person. It's a lot of things that single parents go through that, unless you've been a single parent, you just won't understand.
Right.
So yeah.
And I've seen the single parent lifestyle, and I knew I didn't want to be one, and I knew I didn't want my wife to be one.
My mother raised 4 kids.
Yeah.
As a single parent, and the struggles that she had, she raised 4 disrespectful kids. The troubles that she had with us, but my mom used to always say, "You're gonna get that back. You're gonna see that again. You're gonna reap that." And I remember saying something to my mom, and they was like, "Donna, don't say that." And mom said, "That's okay. She gonna get that." Then when I had those kids, my mama took me to juvenile. I don't know what I did. I came home one day and she said, "You gotta go. Let's go." And I'm like, "Where we going?" She didn't tell me where we was going. We pulled up. We was in juvenile. So I don't know who called her, told her whatever I did. I don't even know what I did to the day. She never told me. But anyway, we got to juvenile. My mom was telling them everything about all that I was doing. And I'm sitting there still with this attitude. I'm just looking at mama, I don't want to go back home with her either. In my head, I don't want to go back. She don't want me. I don't want her, all this stuff. Do you know the exact same thing I ended up taking Keegan to juvenile? Same thing. Same thing that she went through with me. And I just heard my mama voice echoing, "You gonna reach that," and I end up taking my son to juvenile the same way, in the same way she had to bring me back out, because they wouldn't take me. I had to bring him back out because they wouldn't take him.
Don't you see?
Yeah, but so I do salute I do think we need to do something for single parents.
Yeah, we do. I can see it, and my mother. I'm a product of a single parent home, and I do thank God for my mother bringing me to the True Church of God in Christ, and the men that were here to help to mentor me. And I did receive some great mentorship.
That's a blessing.
And there is some great mentorship. So
That's
we don't want people to think that there's not good mentors.
It is.
There's some great men. There's some great mentors.
Right.
But like you said, which is very true, you need to be selective, and you need to vet.
You do.
You need to vet.
You do. And I was just blessed, that I did, even though I wanted to put them in a lot of positions, God just didn't see fit for it to pan out, or I would have had a different story today, perhaps, but God just blessed me in all of my ignorance. He smiled on me and just didn't let it be so. And I know it was him, and I'm totally grateful for that. And the fact that I did raise those children along and I got them out of school and everything like that, I'm blessed for that, but it wouldn't have been I do believe in my heart it wouldn't have been if I hadn't have came to the True Church of God in Christ.
Well, we thank God for you being here, and I love the Green family, and we have some more conversation to have.
Oh, yeah.
And so we appreciate you
God bless
for
you.
this
Thank you
conversation.
for having me. I
And there
appreciate
is
it.
life. You have experienced life after
Oh,
the loss of
definitely.
your husband,
Yes,
Raymond. And God has increased you. He's developed you into who you are today.
Yes, he has.
And there was some hope. And
Definitely.
in fact, there even some hope even beyond having raised your children and you're an empty nester now, right?
Love it. Love it.
So there's some
New
more
life.
conversation for us to have.
Yes,
And may the
yes.
Lord bless you. May heaven smile upon you. Until next time is our prayer.